From Southern California, this is The Circle of Insight, a show about everything in psychology. Hear the latest in news and views on psychology. Our motto is simple: wherever there is psychology involved, we are there. And now, here's your host of The Circle of Insight, Carlos Vasquez.
From wherever you are around the world, welcome and thank you for joining us. Today we're going to be exploring a hot topic, it seems like, in the world today: interracial dating. I know we've dealt a lot with racism, but actually we're going to take a look on the good side of interracial subjects. This is going to be interracial dating. We have with us today at the Circle Christelyn Karazin. She is the author of Swirling and a founder of a blog called Beyond Black and White. She's also the brand ambassador of InterracialDatingCentral.com. Welcome to the Circle, Christelyn.
Thank you so much for having me.
Like I was saying earlier in the introduction, I think I kind of fumbled. This is a really hot topic right now, is race. And there seems to be a lot of issues between blacks and whites right now, but I want to look at a better side of it. I want to look at some of the success stories and some of the ways we can get along better. And interracial dating was something that really fascinated me. But first of all, I wanted to see how you got involved in all of this with interracial dating, the book Swirling and Beyond Black and White, the blog. How did you get started?
You know, it was all sort of an outgrowth of what was happening in my life and my life experiences. During the time that I met my husband, who's Caucasian, he's white, it was around 1999. And while there was interracial relationships happening between Black people and white people, it was primarily with Black men and non-Black women. And even today, those numbers still pan out. Black men do tend to date and marry interracially at twice the rate of Black women. So a lot of my friends saw who my husband was. They found out first that we were dating, and then they were like, "You mean he goes out with you in public?"
They asked you that question?
There were yes. Because there's all sorts of myths and presuppositions that Black women in particular get, that, you know, non-Black men, particularly white men, aren't going to take them seriously, that maybe they'll be something that, you know, they'll experiment with or hide in the closet. But if you're looking for one to be sort of serious and, you know, marry you and have a family with you, that's not likely. So during that time, I had well-meaning friends and family when I was dating my husband who said that, you know, I don't want you to take this relationship too seriously. Have you met his parents? And, you know, when they found out that my husband came from a good family that was rather prominent, they were even more convinced that this man would not take me seriously as a mate.
Oh, really? So you actually took a backward look at that.
Yes. And actually there are some places, I mean, there are people, you know, in my own family who, you know, it's so crazy. I have lots of biracial cousins in the South, in Texas, and nobody blinks an eye because they're all Black men who have sired these children. But when they found out about me being married to a white guy, it was shocking. Like, they thought, this doesn't happen. You know what I mean? And yeah. I felt like, you know, I have a background in public relations and magazine writing, and I just thought that it was time to sort of dispel those myths and get people to give yourself an opportunity to maximize all your options. And Black women in particular have challenges because we outnumber Black men. And
you mean in the sense of availability or just quantity,
yes,
period?
In terms of availability and marriageability. We are more likely to go to college. We're more likely to, you know, graduate high school. We're more likely to, you know, go for prominent positions in corporate America. And unfortunately, our counterparts don't equal us in that way. And so what I saw happening a lot of times were Black women who were very successful. You know, I have one in particular that comes to my mind, a Harvard law graduate, a successful corporate lawyer who married somebody from her neighborhood because she felt the pressure to, keep it real, to like be down. Are you still down with your neighborhood? Yes, you went to Harvard, but are you still down for Black people? And she felt that pressure, married someone who she thought she needed to prove her Blackness and her loyalty. And the marriage was a disaster. The husband was very resentful of her success. He had never gone to college. And so basically my argument was, why are we setting up values for who's marriageable based on melanin and not based on values?
That's a good point. Quick question for you. The friends that challenged her or were trying to say keep her the thing real, were they Black as well?
Yes. There's a tremendous amount of pressure. That's what a lot of people don't understand. There's a tremendous amount of pressure for Black women to uphold the race. We are seen as sort of the keepers of the culture, the center of family cohesiveness. So there's a little bit more pressure for us to uphold certain values and cultural mores in the community. If you look at what's happening in current events, like Ferguson, the women who got arrested, the protesters out there are primarily African-American women. They're outnumbering the Black male protesters. And that's not uncommon. Black women are extremely loyal to our culture. We want Black men to succeed. We are willing to make certain personal sacrifices for them. It's not always reciprocated.
Do you think it's from an evolutionary psychology point here, I'm kind of thinking in my head, do you think is it because of a reaction that they would reduce the potential of good mates, of good Black men for them? And that's why they get so upset, because they believe that they're being targeted by police?
Well, yes, because what happens is a man who has a felony is less marketable in the corporate world, and he's less marriageable. And, and what happens is when you're exposed to a certain criminal element in jail, it tends to strengthen those connections, those, nefarious connections. And then it's sort of like a slippery slope down the wrong road. But you also have to couple it with the fact that we have a tremendous out of wedlock rate in the Black community. It's like 72% out of wedlock rate. So when you have a situation where you have children who are being brought up with, who are not in a two-parent home, these children are more susceptible to, getting in trouble in school, dropping out of high school. They're, several times more likely to go to jail, and several times more likely to live in poverty. So there's a lot of challenges that are that affect the Black community that a lot of Black women feel responsible to deal with or bear or try to overcome.
Hi, welcome to Adelante. This is Adelante Recovery, and my name is Yvette Kuglin, and I'm part of the staff.
Adelante Recovery Center has helped people in dual diagnosis for 5 years. We accept most PPO insurances and provide luxury accommodations and 24-hour support. To speak with an admissions counselor, call 1-888-242-4450.
lot of time we don't even know what's wrong with us, and sometimes we need to get away to figure that out. So if you want to go for a little retreat out in Corona Del Mar, which is a confidential location, we're here to help. So we're only a phone call away. Thank you.
I've heard those numbers before. I've heard the percentages of black men that go to jail, the percentage of black men that don't have education. But I keep looking back. I look at the civil rights movement in the 1960s, and blacks overcame a lot in the 50s and 40s. All that during that time, they've continued. And now I'm starting to see there's generational changes, right?
Yes,
There's
absolutely.
a lot more opportunity now for black men and women.
Yes.
There's a lot more than there was 50 years ago. Do you think it's fair to say that maybe in 20, 30 years down the line, as generations get further and further away from that life of the 1950s and 40s when they had that terrible racism, as they get further away, do you think there's a better chance for these numbers to start going down?
Well, I mean, it depends, because there's a lot of factors that are affecting this, and if they're not addressed, then generational shifts and cultural shifts won't happen unless a group of people take charge of it and decide that this is where they're going to go in the direction that they're going to go into. I will say that in general, in terms of our nation and how we deal with race and how we categorize people, will change in the next 20, 30 years. I mean, we see it happening now with the whole, we are the 15%, where the census reflects that 15% of all new marriages are people who claim to be in interracial marriages. So if we're at 15% now, I don't see those numbers dwindling. I see those numbers increasing. And as people are more exposed to other cultures and merge and form marriages and offspring, then yes, I think those ghosts will die, for a better analogy.
Interesting. Well, let's go back to interracial dating now. So we know that some of the challenges, you've talked about it already, a lot of pressure on your side. I want to look a little bit on the other side and see what challenges your husband encountered, and then maybe look at the benefits. And then, of course, towards the end here, in the last few minutes, you'll have your fastball question, so you have to prepare yourself for that. But we'll get to that a little later. So what are some of the challenges your husband had with the interracial marriage?
Well, I was very candid about this in my book, Swirling, because the common question that I would get from people was, well, what did his parents think? And how did they receive you? And, yada, yada. My husband comes from a well-to-do family in Westport, Connecticut. His father is a Superior Court judge. And while my father-in-law has exposure to black people, like through his job or what have you, they have no black friends. Like, they still really have no black friends. And there were some really hurtful moments at the beginning of our relationship. I remember my husband, who we weren't married at the time, but we were getting close. We'd broken up briefly, and we'd gotten back together, and he told, his parents that he'd gotten back together with me. His father said, when I heard that you guys broke up, I was relieved, because as a family court judge, people who are, similar with background and how they're raised, those marriages tend to, be long lasting. And I'm also concerned that your marriage to her might affect your career. Now, I could understand where he was coming from. He was just telling the truth, and it is in the generation that he grew up in. He was born in the 40s. Absolutely, if you're married to a black woman, during the 40s, 50s, 60s, it would have affected your career. So I sort of understand that he's coming from that worldview of how the world was. I mean, he's, here he is, he's seeing pre-civil rights, civil rights movement, post-civil rights movement. And so his worldview is shaped in a certain way. We were born post-civil rights movement. Our worldview is different. However, it hurt my husband a lot. He didn't speak to his father for a while. And his mother took a softer stance. And I think that women understand inherently, because we have that nurturing spirit of just that love conquers all. And if you love someone. And so she went out and, you know, did research on interracial relationships. She bought a book called Love in Black and White, because that was the only interracial relation book out at the time. So she really tried to understand. And I remember her telling me that her friends who, you know, you think Westport and think people who, you know, are very wealthy, who are in this circle, she said, you know, some of my friends said, well, aren't you relieved when they found out that we had broken up? Oh my goodness, aren't you relieved? And my mother-in-law said, no, I'm not, because my son is miserable and I want my son happy. And so I think we as women sort of understand the romance of it. It did take some time for his father to come around. And I think that for a long time, my husband was hurt by his words. But I think over time and exposure, and once we were married, his attitude changed. And we're very close now. I mean, I call him Dad. But it took a while for us to get there. You know, it's like, he's the type of person, if he says that he loves you, he means it. And, you know, he loves me and he's told me so, and I love him. But it all takes time and patience, and it's up to each individual how much they're willing to, they're willing to give the other parties involved to come around. Because people may not always initially be welcoming to the situation, and they might just need some time, and it's up to each individual if they're willing to give that time. And I will say that the merging of our cultures and races has been beneficial. You know, I see a certain side of, you know, American culture that I didn't see as my parents grew up in the country. You know, my father, who passed away, was a son of a sharecropper. And so we had a different American experience than my husband did. But, you know, my husband also got exposed to, you know, country fish fries and, you know, going to a gospel church and, you know, all of those things that, you know, are part of my culture that he got exposed to. And it's been interesting.
I can see exactly why your father-in-law loves you. You're a wonderful person, beautiful lady.
Oh, thank you.
Before we get to the last fastball question, we have 1 minute left. Are you ready?
Yeah, I am ready.
Okay, you can handle the heat, huh? Here it comes.
I can.
Why are black women a good catch?
Ooh, I like that. You must have gotten that from my blog, didn't you?
Probably. You mean Beyond Black and White? That's the blog?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, well, I'm going to answer that with a little cheeky comment. Because we always look 20 years younger than we actually are.
Ouch, all right.
I'm 41 and I still get carded. So.
Are you really?
Yes, I am.
I was getting ready to ask the videographer to make sure you're legal of age.
Yes,
Wow.
I'm 41 years old. So we age beautifully. That's a prime one. Also, I think black women are socialized that when we love you and when you are ours, we are loyal and we will fight for you and we will lift you up, because that's how we were socialized to being. And I'll give you an example. Shortly before we were supposed to get married, my husband had gotten laid off and he had to take a completely new job track. And he was depressed for a while. And, you know, he was kind of not figuring out what, you know, he was going to do. And I said, look, Michael, you are white, male. You went to one of the best colleges in the United States. You better put your big boy pants on and go out there and get a job. And when I said that, he found a job. He's still there, and it's been 10 years.
Oh, that's wonderful. How long have you been married?
We have been married for 13 years.
There you go. It's a testimony that it does work.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Christelyn. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I wish we had more time. Unfortunately, the shows are short.
If you like.
I definitely want you to come back. We want to continue to explore this topic. I think it's very, very misunderstood.
Yeah.
Thank you again for joining us on The Circle. Once again, it's Christelyn Karazin. Where do we get a hold of you? I know a lot of people are going to want to know more about you. Where do we go?
Well, you can reach me most readily through the blog, which is beyondblackwhite.com. If you have a question for me, or if you want to reach out to me because maybe you're going through similar challenges and issues, because we do address these on a regular basis, and we do have a support group that we deal with, you can email me, and that's my first name, Christelyn, CHRISTELYN, @beyondblackwhite.com.
Wonderful. Also, I would highly recommend you get her book. It's a wonderful book called Swirling. Remember, everyone, thank you for joining us. And remember, our motto is simple. Wherever there's psychology involved, we are there. See you next time, everyone.